Welcome back to From Seed to Pantry. In today's episode, I'm going to talk about starting potatoes in grow bags and how to set up your soaker hose for your raised bed gardens. Let's get growing. Alright, so we're going to talk about how to grow potatoes in grow bags. So I've got one of these cloth grow bags here. This one's a 20-gallon grow bag. So you want to make sure you at least have a 10-gallon grow bag if you're going to grow potatoes to make sure they have enough room to grow and expand. And then I have my mushroom compost here that I'm going to be using for the soil. And then I'll walk you through the step-by-step on how to do this. Alright, so now we're going to walk through the process of actually growing our potatoes in the grow bag. So the first thing you need is some type of seed potato in order to actually start this process. You're going to need some type of soil. I'm using mushroom compost as that's what works well for me. If your potatoes are not already chitted, by chitting I mean it has growths on it there, you'll need to do that process. The process for doing that is you put them in a damp, dark environment for a couple weeks and they'll grow these sprouts off of them, and that's where the potatoes are going to grow off of. You also want to make sure that if you have a whole potato, you want to cut it into pieces about golf ball size and then let it sit for a couple days in order for you to get this protective layer on that. That's going to prevent it from molding once it's actually buried in the ground. Alright, we have our empty bag here and I have my soil here. So I'm going to put about 2 to 3 inches of soil in this bag, and then we'll add the potatoes to it. Alright, so we now have about 2 inches of soil in our bag, and now we're going to stick our seed potatoes in here. So it's a little dark in here, but you want to make sure when you put your seed potatoes in, you put these sprouts sides up, and then just kind of spread these about in your bag evenly throughout. Make sure you give them about 4 to 6 inches apart. Making sure you have the sprouts upward. As that's where the potatoes are going to go from. And as you can see, I have them evenly distributed. Move that one up here a little bit. They're evenly distributed amongst the bag. Now I'm going to top this with about 2 to 3 inches of soil. And now you can see all the potatoes are covered. You want to make sure you fully cover the potatoes. You don't want to let them get exposed to the light. If you get the potatoes exposed to the light, they're going to turn green and you now made your potatoes inedible. So make sure you fully cover the potatoes. As you can see, I did not fill the bag fully. That was done purposely. So as these potatoes grow, they're going to put green sprouts out from the potatoes. Once they get to 6 to 8 inches in height, you're going to bury those to about where there's only about 3 inches of sprout remaining. And you're going to repeat that process until you get to the top of the bag. That's going to allow more potatoes to grow in here. If you're using a compost as your soil, you don't need to fertilize now. If you're using normal topsoil or something that doesn't have a fertilizer, this is a good time to put fertilizer into the soil. And then you're going to want to do that again halfway through the season. Since I'm using mushroom compost, I'm not going to add any fertilizer here. When I get about halfway through the season, I'll add some liquid fertilizer as well to it. And then make sure that you water this soil well, and especially since you're growing these in bags, it's not going to have the groundwater to absorb the water. You want to make sure you're checking on these and keeping them wet. Potatoes don't like to dry out, so make sure you're keeping an eye on water at least once a week. And that's pretty much it, the process. Like I said, once we get the sprouts about 8 inches, we'll put about 6 inches of soil on there, leaving 2 to 3 inches at the top, and just keep repeating the process through the season. In about 80 to 100 days, we'll have potatoes. Alright, let's talk about setting up your soaker hose. So I have my water supply coming in. I have a two-way splitter on my water supply here. This is because this is a very large raised bed garden and I kind of need to split it into two different zones. I highly recommend an automatic watering system, when you can hook a hose up and set a timer so that you can set it up on a schedule so it's easier to actually set up. So as you see here, the leaves are kind of in the way there, but I have two different hoses hooked up to this, and this my supply hose coming in. And then what I did here is, as you can kind of see, I laid out my soaker hose around my plants and then kind of in a zigzag pattern where I'm going to be putting plants at. And I just kind of did this throughout the garden. And at the end of it, you'll see there's a cap at the end. That's important. Make sure you cap it, otherwise it won't pressurize and you basically just have water coming out the end of the hose and not actually fill the hoses and actually doing your soaker hose. This is the second line coming through here, coming from the second zone for the soaker hose, and then basically I set it up the same way, doing a zigzag patterns all along your path, and then at the end there you cap it. So one thing important when you're setting up your soaker hoses, there's two different types of soaker hoses. You have these flat soaker hoses like this, or let me find the other ones here. There's another type like these here. These ones I had to pull out. You'll see these, they're more the round soaker hoses. You want to make sure you're not combining the type in here. These flat soaker hoses will hold pressure a little bit more. So if you do the round ones, the ones I showed you there second, along with the flat soaker hoses, you're not going to have enough pressure once you get into the flat soaker hoses to actually get water through them adequately. You also want to kind of watch how many lengths of these soaker hoses you have. Because again, even these flat soaker hoses, which hold pressure a little bit better, are going to drop pressure the longer you go. So one good thing is when you're first setting them up, first you want to fill them up, make sure they're completely full. So when you set it up initially, you're going to take that cap off the end there, and you're going to make sure water flows through all your soaker hoses. And then recap it. And then you want to kind of do a test run. Run your soaker hoses for a few minutes and make sure you have adequate flow and that they're dripping adequately all lengths of your hoses. If it's not, you may need to shorten it up and do several different runs. And that's it for this episode from Seed to Pantry. In the next episode, we're going to start our summer garden, and I'll specifically talk about how to plant tomato plants. It's a little bit different than how you plant normal plants, but we'll talk about that on the next episode. Until next time, happy gardening.